Welcome back to another episode of Practical Nutrition. I'm Alex.
I'm Cassie.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we are talking about fad diets. So as nutrition professionals, we get a lot of questions about different diets. What do you recommend? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? So we're going to break some of them down today, 3 of the most popular ones that we see nowadays. But again, you've probably heard the term fad diets used quite often in social media, between peers, family members. Using that word is common. A fad diet is a diet that becomes popular for a short period of time, and it's similar to like fads in fashion. Right now, like bell-bottom jeans are coming. I mean, there's lots of different fads in fashion. Skinny jeans are like not cool anymore, which I just got a bunch of skinny jeans, so that's unfortunate. I feel like right when I hop on the trend, I'm off the trend. But
it's hard to keep up.
It is hard to keep up. And fad diets are not a standard dietary recommendation from a nutrition professional. These diets often make unreasonable claims with fast weight loss or health improvements. They're endorsed by influencers, celebrities, supplement companies, all types of weight loss industry companies, and all that kind of stuff. At least 40% of people have tried fad diets at least once. Fads typically promise short-term fixes, dramatic results, restrictive steps, one-size-fits-all, scare tactics, and more. So like a can versus can't. If you do this, this will happen. That's really common with fad diets. You're promising like 80-pound weight loss in a month. Obviously, that's going to be unrealistic for a lot of people. So that would be considered some of those fad things. There isn't one single definition for fad diets. However, they typically take very different approaches that result in various outcomes with advantages and disadvantages depending on the diet. As nutrition professionals, so like us 3, we often get the question, what are your thoughts on ... We want to sort through some of the most popular fad diets and answer your thoughts and our thoughts. So there's trends that are typically a little bit healthier that we could help with, and there's some that are just out of this world, unhealthy, wouldn't recommend it. And we're going to start with some of the what the heck fad diets, and Sarah's going to go into that.
Yes, so there's many out there. These are only 2 of them. I personally have never had someone ask me about these, but things like this are out there, so please do not do anything related to this. They are what we would call extreme. Yeah, so the first one is called the 5-bite diet. It is exactly what it sounds like. It was created by a medical doctor. His name's Dr. Alan Lewis, and his goal with this diet was to help patients achieve a 15-pound weight loss in 1 week, which is, we would all agree, is way too much. That's something that should be lost over a period of months, not 1 week. And so anyways, the goal is to consume around 800 calories per day, but to be honest, I would be shocked if people even got that many calories. And one of Dr. Lewis's goals for his patients with this diet is to obtain a BMI of 18.5, which is on the brink of being underweight in terms of the BMI scale. And we do not have goals for our clients to have a BMI of 8.5. It's not really a healthy weight for most people, and we honestly don't really even look at the BMI scale too much anymore. So anyways, an example meal plan for this would be basically skipping breakfast, so you can have a cup of black coffee with no sugar, nothing in it, and he recommended having a multivitamin pill, which to be honest is probably a good idea because you're not getting any other micronutrients anywhere else throughout the day. And then an example lunch would be 5 bites of any kind of food. And when I researched this diet, this is literally the example they gave you. It says, word for word, hamburgers are ideal as they have the right amount of nutritional value and are also tasty. So
Yum.
There you go.
That's hilarious.
I know, right? And then,
I would buy into that.
Right, yeah. Wouldn't we all? And then portion control. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
And then same thing for dinner, 5 bites of any type of food. Same thing, word for word on this website. It said you could try 3 bites of mac and cheese and 2 bites of an apple pie. So that's where that multivitamin comes in handy for breakfast. Because I don't see much of that throughout the rest of the day. So that sums up the 5-bite diet. Not too much to it. And then the second is called the cotton ball diet. I feel like this one's a little bit more popular in terms of, you may have heard this versus the 5-bite diet. It became popular in the modeling industry. So like Victoria's Secret angels. And then it kind of spread to the figure skating industry. So it involves dipping cotton balls in liquids like juices or smoothies. So obviously you're taking in like no calories, and your goal is basically to just feel full. So you're kind of just tricking your palate into thinking you're eating food when you're not consuming anything nutritious whatsoever. So both of these, again, never recommended. Please don't do them. Please don't even Google them. They are unrealistic and they're unhealthy ways to go about weight loss, and they're not sustainable. And that's one thing that we really preach here at AYB is sustainability. And they can cause harm. They can definitely cause harm, which is what we do not want for you. Absolutely not.
Your GI system will be very unhappy with cotton balls. I can imagine. So those are some of the unhealthier diet trends that we would say, hey, let's definitely hard no to doing that. But there are some trends out there that are fads, but they can be a healthier trend, I guess you could say. So 3 of those that we're looking at first would be the ketogenic diet. We get questions about this all the time. First and foremost, we don't recommend it to everybody. It's not something that we would say you need to be on this for weight loss. That's really not what it was designed for anyways. And people are using it more so as a fad now than anything. So really what it is, it's putting your body into ketosis, which is commonly used for weight loss and dieters. When people consume low amounts of carbs with the idea of your body making the switch from relying on sugars as fuel to burning fat for energy with ketones from the liver. So that's ketosis in itself. This requires that you deprive the body of carbs, so that's less than 40 grams a day. So think of like a piece of bread, typically a larger piece of bread, 20 to 25 grams of carbs. So 2 of those, maybe less in a day, and that would be your carbs for the day. Ketogenic diet is mostly made up of meat, poultry, fish, cheese, veggies, very little fruit. It's high fat, moderate protein, very low carb. And there's pros and cons to all of these diets that we're going to go through, and Cassie's going to dive us into the pros of the keto diet.
Yes, there are some pros to keto. And so one of the big ones that people see, especially at first, is weight loss. And so there are also some physiologic adaptations. So that quick weight loss is because you're depleting your body of all of your glycogen stores, which is your stored carb, and that also stores body water with it. So that is a big source of the weight loss. And you'll also lose some body fat because there is reduced lipogenesis, which is the formation of fat, and increased lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fat. And so you do get some of those metabolic advantages. You also get improvement in blood sugar control and blood lipid panels. That's shown in research. So a lot of people need to improve their blood lipid panels and their blood sugar control, and that might help them. Also, one of the big benefits that a lot of people see is increased satiety. So when you're in ketosis, you don't really feel hungry. And so that can be a benefit for people that maybe don't like that about a lower calorie plan. Now, typically our plans, I don't usually have people hungry on our plans because they eat so much healthy food.
That's right, so much fiber.
So you don't have to this isn't the only option if the low calorie diets don't feel good because you're hungry. So you can also lose weight without being hungry. But ketosis is known for decreasing hunger. Also, if you have certain medical conditions, it might be helpful. So if you have epilepsy, or if you have neurological disorders such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, those are some areas that ketosis might be a good option for you. For epilepsy, it's this is really well researched, but it has a positive influence on neurotransmitter activity, and there's a direct anticonvulsant effect of ketone bodies. And so when you're in ketosis, you have more ketone bodies circulating, and so that actually is shown to reduce seizures 30 to 40% compared to comparative controls, which is really impressive. So if you have epilepsy or know someone that has epilepsy, that would be something that we as dietitians get help with, is giving you a healthy, well-balanced keto diet for that. Also, neurodegenerative disorders, it might be helpful there. This is something that there still needs to be some research on, but there was a review published in the Journal of Clinical Medicine that assessed the effectiveness of the keto diet on the therapy of neurodegenerative diseases. If Few studies have evaluated the role of keto in the prevention of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, but more studies have been conducted that show promise in managing symptoms. So it may not prevent you from getting those things, but if you do have them, it might help with those symptoms. These diseases are prominent in the elderly population, so that's one concern you have to think about, because that population is also already at risk for malnutrition and maybe not getting enough. And with keto decreasing appetite, it might be that they are getting too few calories to meet their needs. And so keto isn't a low calorie diet, it's a low carb diet. And that's something that with the keto plans that we put together for people, it's not going to be a calorie restricted kind of plan. You're not starving yourself to get into ketosis. You're actually adapting what you're eating to force you into ketosis. So it's very different than just not eating, which is not something that we recommend. So it could be a problem for getting other valuable nutrients that population needs or any population needs. So we do need some more research on that population, but there does show some promise for those things.
Right. So those are some pros, and then kind of moving into some cons with keto. It can be restrictive and unsustainable. So if you're somebody that burns, we do resting metabolic rate testing here. If you're somebody who burns 100% carbs at rest, keto may not be the route for you. You may feel hungry. You may feel that keto flu a lot harder than somebody else, and that's when you've got that fog, that brain fog, you're tired, and that's from depriving your body of those carbs. And it's usually like a 2-week period where you feel like you have that keto flu. So it can be restrictive, unsustainable. It can sometimes cause constipation from less fiber. So if you think you have high fat, low carb, moderate protein, you have less fruits, you have less complex carbs, which are high in fiber. So if you have less of that, constipation can be a problem. It can affect exercise, and there's a lot of research with like fat adaptation and exercise, but from what we've seen, evidence suggests that increased fat availability transfers into higher rates of whole body / muscle lipid utilization during submax aerobic exercise, which you already knew that. However, despite greater rates of fat oxidation, these diets consistently fail to improve endurance performance compared with a carb-rich diet. So we as dietitians, we work with athletes a lot. We always want our athletes to center their carbs around when they're exercising, because your body's going to utilize that most often. But more research is needed, as always, and with strength training as well in ketosis. There's more research needed there. It may be an extreme way to find weight loss. So people come in to our office and they want to lose weight, but keto might be a big extreme to do that. We can do calorie deficits through exercise and food, but still get you feeling full and having carbs throughout the day without having to go into ketosis. It's often too high protein, so people like to think that you just have as much protein as you want, which is not necessarily the case. It's not a high protein eating plan. It is a high fat eating plan, and not necessarily from like bacon and pork rinds and that kind of stuff. If you're somebody who did want to do keto, we would help you do it in a healthy, sustainable way. But again, it's difficult and it can be restrictive. So it's definitely for certain populations if we feel like they would benefit from it. Weight comes back after adding carbs back in. So if you're somebody who does keto and then adds all the carbs back in, then your weight could come back pretty quickly. You could even gain some more than where you started from. So just keeping that in mind. Long-term effects of keto still unknown. There needs to be longer studies done with keto for us to start recommending it to people, but we're just not seeing that quite yet. So the healthiest way to do keto, if you are wanting to apply it, if you're somebody who's like, I'm set on keto, I want to do it, let a nutrition professional help you. Don't just Google keto diet online, because there's going to be all kinds out there and it may not be the right specific diet for you. So healthiest ways, high fat, not high protein, which I already talked about. Avoiding processed foods, so like pork rinds and that kind of stuff are highly processed. So less omega-6s and more omega-3s, healthier fats, avocados, nuts, seeds, those types of things. Organic, grass-fed for your meats, you want to try to pick those over others. Doing whole wheat when you can. You may need a multivitamin, which a dietitian can assess what you're having in a day, and then we can recommend a multivitamin for you. Follow it for a month, see how your body responds. That would be a good kind of rule of thumb. Let a dietitian help you for a month. And if it's your body's not responding well, which we do a 7-site skin fold so we can see your lean weight versus fat weight. If your body's not responding to it well, then we would probably recommend something different, because you're going to see those results probably in a month's time if you're doing it correctly. Staying consistent is important in keto. It's not something where you're keto during the week and then not keto on the weekends. It's something where you are either in ketosis or you're not in ketosis. And that's the healthier way to do it if you're going to do it. And then again, ask a nutrition professional, ask one of us. We do those free 30-minute consults. So if you are thinking about it, then let us know. We can see if we can help you. So that is keto. The next one we're going to talk about, which again is very popular, is that gluten-free diet. So Sarah, what is it?
Yes, so gluten is a protein that's found in wheat, rye, and barley. And so some fun statistics, you know how we love those statistics. 3.1 million people in the U.S., it's estimated, follows a gluten-free diet. However, about 72% of those people are without celiac disease, avoiding gluten. So celiac disease is someone who cannot digest and metabolize gluten well, and so they have to be put on a gluten-free diet. However, what we're seeing is more people are getting on a gluten-free diet as a diet trend for weight loss. And only about 1% of the population is actually diagnosed with celiac disease. And it is a serious autoimmune disease that's been shown to damage the microvilli of the small intestines, and it impacts absorption of certain nutrients. So that's where a dietitian and your physician comes into play. We can help make sure that you're getting all of those things as you should. So a gluten-free diet is the only known nutritional treatment for celiac disease or gluten sensitivity. And you should talk to your physician to get tested before cutting out gluten. There's blood tests that you can take. We do the elimination diet with some people to figure out if they really do have gluten intolerances and things like that. Because for the majority of people, what we found out is they probably don't really have a sensitivity or an intolerance to gluten. And so there's just no point. There's no point in restricting yourself more than you need to. And another thing that we found too is that, people will mask patterns of disordered eating with food allergies. And we want to assess the food allergy, if it's there, or if it's really just patterns of disordered eating, because that's something that we help clients with as well. And other dietitians that specialize in eating disorders can help with as well.
Absolutely. And a lot of people like to blame a whole food group and then just cut it out. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm having bloating, so it's got to be gluten, it's got to be dairy, I'm cutting it out. Let a dietitian help you assess that before you go cutting out things like whole food groups such as dairy and cutting out gluten itself. But there are some potential pros to a gluten-free diet. Number one, like Sarah mentioned, it's a long-term solution for those with celiac disease. If you have celiac, you would know. Your symptoms are very prominent. Whenever you do have gluten, your symptoms become exacerbated. It destroys, or it doesn't destroy really, but it harms the microvilli in your intestines, and that's when you can't absorb things as well. So if you have gluten, then you just have all these array of symptoms. So it is a long-term solution, which is a pro to those diagnosed with celiac disease. But there is some potential weight loss. So if you are doing a gluten-free diet, you're paying much more attention to the label, and you may not be eating things that are as processed. Maybe you're doing more fruits and veggies, which can promote weight loss, depending again on what the rest of your diet looks like. And it's not like a cause and effect. If you go gluten-free, you're going to lose weight, but you may just be paying more attention to what your plate looks like, which can maybe cause weight loss. So it can also help normalize thyroid function. So we're looking at the celiac thyroid connection. This was posted in today's Dietitian. The largest study to date showed that adults with celiac disease had 4.4 times the relative risk of hypothyroidism and 2.9 times the risk of hyperthyroidism compared with the general public. So there's definitely some sort of connection there. A 2008 study explored the connection between autoimmune hypothyroidism and celiac disease and hypothesized a mechanism via serum anti-TTG antibodies. It is well established that these antibodies are present in patients with active celiac and that they decrease and eventually disappear on a gluten-free diet. So those antibodies are decreased when you implement a gluten-free diet. The study demonstrated that these anti-TTG antibodies bind and react to thyroid tissue as well, which may contribute to thyroid dysfunction. So gluten-free could be helpful for the population that has thyroid dysfunction, such as those with Hashimoto's. So those with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, we have seen in research that a gluten-free diet can be beneficial. It's not for everybody, but it can be beneficial. So talking to a dietitian and your physician about that would be a good thing. So some cons with the gluten-free diet. Obviously, gluten is in a lot of grains, so like your breads, your pastas, that kind of thing. So you're getting in fewer products that are going to be enriched with things such as B vitamins, and then you're a little bit lower in iron and calcium. So it's important to talk to a dietitian so we can assess your micronutrients and make sure that you're meeting all of your needs. You have decreased amounts of fiber that can lead to constipation. I feel like this is common in a lot of these fads. So less fiber, increased constipation. So that could become an issue. It's expensive. So if you're somebody who is going gluten-free kind of for the fad side of it, and you're buying all these box things that are saying gluten-free on it, they're typically really expensive, and they can be more processed, and they're typically higher calorie. So going gluten-free, picking more like rice, quinoa, that kind of stuff, instead of pasta and breads, that would be a more wholesome way to switch out gluten-free items, or to switch out items with gluten rather than doing like tons of boxed stuff. And then the accessibility. Sometimes it's hard to find gluten-free products, and that can be a negative of being gluten-free. If you're at a restaurant, they may not have something that's gluten-free. And I feel like more so now people are adapting to that. But again, we want people that are doing it for the reasons of they need to be gluten-free rather than doing it just as a fad for weight loss. So it's important to kind of differentiate that. So healthiest ways to do it: talk to your physician or dietitian. Make sure that you're covering your micro needs, which we can assess. Add lots of color to your plate. Make sure you're getting enough fiber from fruits, veggies, and then meeting your micro needs. If needing to be gluten-free, focus on whole foods rather than the overly processed stuff, which we already talked about. So that's gluten-free in a nutshell. And again, if you have questions about any of this, post about it and we can respond. But the last one we're gonna kind of skim through is Whole30. Very common right now. It's that 30 days. And Cassie's gonna tell us a little bit more about what exactly it is.
Yes, so Whole30 is 30 days with no sugar, no alcohol, no grains, no legumes, no dairy or treats. Sounds
No
fun.
wine?
No wine. I'm out.
I'm not doing it.
It does promotes moderate amounts of fat, seafood and eggs, vegetables and fruit for what people should be eating, and is promoted as a way to reboot healthy eating habits and cravings. Founders believe that eliminating these food groups may help with a number of ailments that are blamed on food sensitivity, so skin, digestion, low energy, chronic pain. So that's what they're promoting. If you have any of these issues, try Whole30 and it might help you. And so you're not allowed to weigh yourself during the 30 days or take any body measurements, because the purpose is for lifelong health, which we can get behind that.
Yeah.
So some of the pros: it focuses on whole real foods, which is a really good thing. So it might help people break some habits that they have and forces them to concentrate on more of the foods that they need to eat for health. It also decreases processed food, because you really can't do a whole lot of processed food if you're doing Whole30. Now, they do have a lot of Whole30 approved processed foods now. The food industry is always quick to catch up to all the trends. So they're not left out at all. So you do have to watch that. And people do look at food labels and look at ingredients and learn more about ingredients. So that can be a positive thing. Also, it promotes how foods make you feel rather than worrying about the number on the scale, which is something else that we promote, is, not focusing just on your weight and what your body's doing, because that can come back very easily. So whole foods can be positive for that.
Yes, and there's some negatives too. There's some cons. One of the first things is the elimination of all of those food groups can lead to micronutrient deficiencies. Probably not for 30 days, but if you continue this for a long amount of time, then that's something that we definitely would be concerned with. Specifically, B vitamins, lacking dietary fiber, which can lead to constipation once again, and then maybe even deficiencies in calcium due to limitations of dairy. You can get calcium from other other things, yes, but with our westernized diet, most people get a lot of calcium from dairy products. Additionally, the Whole30 is not really well studied, not well researched, especially, doing it long term, because most people just do it for the 30 days. But I know many people do it, 30 days. In 1 month, 2 months later, they'll do it again, and then they'll constantly repeat it. They're not necessarily doing it for a year or 2 years or whatever. And additionally, with Whole30, you have to, quote unquote, start over when you mess up. So if you have something that's not on the Whole30 outline meal plan on day 15, like you have a bite of pizza because you're with your friends and everyone else was eating it and you wanted to eat it too, well, then the next day you technically have to start over if you want to follow the rules. And that can really establish a poor relationship with food, because you're telling yourself, if I eat this, I'm bad, and here's my consequence, I have to start over. It's also unsustainable. You only do it for 30 days, and then what? What do you do next? You just go back to what you were doing before? Hopefully not. And then I have, even outside of clients, I've had friends that have done this, and they've self-diagnosed themselves with food intolerances like lactose intolerance, gluten intolerance, because they've eliminated those foods for 30 days. And then on day 31, they go and eat an entire large pizza from Domino's with a whole bunch of cheese on it. And now they're saying, oh, well, there's dairy and gluten in there, so now I'm going to continue to avoid dairy and gluten, when they may not necessarily need to. And that goes back to kind of what we talked about with the gluten-free and things like that. So there are some pros, because you can definitely get in tune with what you're eating, but is it the healthiest thing for you to do? Probably not.
Yes. So these are only 3 of the healthier trended fad diets. So there's a ton out there. If you have questions about it, let us know. But what actually works? So what do we promote? Adapting a healthy lifestyle and environment. So we are all, I know we say it probably in every single podcast, balance and moderation. That's what we're all about. Most diets don't work well and can often lead to disordered eating patterns, yo-yo dieting, and an healthy relationship with food, and oftentimes a decreased metabolism. So if you're not eating enough, it can decrease your metabolism, and we can just go into this diet cycle, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. So what actually works is adopting that healthy lifestyle, making lifestyle changes, and having professionals like ourselves help you. Choose an eating pattern that includes healthy foods, is enjoyable, realistic, and sustainable. There's not a one size fits all. Not everybody should be doing gluten-free. Not everybody should be doing Whole30. Not everybody should be on a certain amount of calories. We're all different. So it's important to know kind of where you need to be at to reach your goals. And if you're unsure about that, come see one of us. Yeah. So we are so sick of the diet cycle. We are over it. Clients start a diet, they feel restricted and deprived, they start to crave things, and then they give in too much and they feel guilty. It's this whole cycle. I'm starting again on Monday. We want to break the cycle. We want to help you establish a healthier relationship with food and make those lifestyle changes. So let a dietitian like ourselves help you get results and find food freedom. So stop with diets, stop with the fads, healthier trends, unhealthy trends. Let us help you find a healthier lifestyle and make those everlasting lifestyle changes. So,
amen.
Yes.
Amen. Boom. Mic drop. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week for another episode of Practical Nutrition.
Thank you.
Thank you.